Start the recording. Alrighty, hi everybody. This is John and Brandon here again with another Indie Creative Mastermind. And this week we're going to be talking a little bit about how to set yourself up for success in 2016. It's a lot of the things that what this time is about for me is kind of reflecting on the things that worked in the last year and looking ahead and figuring out what kind of things we want to do for the coming year. So, Brandon, what do you have in the lineup? What I know you've got some different things. I'm sure that you're excited about. You wanted to share.
Yeah, just really just going into the music game and trying to help artists see what's possible because the game is completely different than it was 10, 15, even 5 years ago. Like there's so much access now to be able to really create your own destiny. And so this year, what I want to do is focus on just really helping people become aware of the possibilities. And also, too, I'm going to be starting like a management company. I'm going to be starting a label and just get into publishing and really just doing all that kind of stuff, too. So,
Nice.
yeah, excited.
Yeah. One of the things I'm working on is an article for Medium. I've been starting to kind of branch out a little bit to some certain platforms I've been writing on,
Mhm.
and I'm writing about this rise of indie creatives is what I'm calling it. And what
Yeah,
it is to me is that like we have, like you said, just so much more that is available as indie artists now that they just never had before, and it's
right.
really turning the tables. Like whether you're in music, different times I work with authors, and then other times filmmakers too. It's just between the social media and the crowdfunding and just all the different tools that even just things like editing and stuff like that, the capabilities you have at your fingertips now just expands what you can do way beyond what was ever possible before.
Absolutely, man. It's incredible. And I think even myself, like sometimes I undervalue what's actually available. And yeah, so this year I really want to try to just quantify everything and really just exploit it, just really use it because 5 years, 10 years from now, it's gonna be the norm. Like everybody's gonna be doing it. It's gonna be like normal society. So I feel like right now it's still in the early adopter stages for anybody who wants to, jump on board and take it to the next level.
Yeah, I mean, just even like what we're doing, this kind of, format of being able to kind of have a talk show and stuff like that. It used to be in the realm of folks who, either had a cable channel and stuff at the best, or, otherwise is like something like CNN and stuff like that. But now, like, you have the capability just as soon as you click on your laptop or, even like, a tablet, stuff like that, even if you wanted to, your smartphone. I mean, you could basically be walking around with the smartphone and carrying on with this kind of technology. It's just phenomenal and stuff. So in terms of how to kind of harness this, though, I think that's what's interesting is that there's some things that like have shifted, but yet there's some things that still go back to the basics, so to speak, and stuff. And that's something that we've talked about different times. That it's really still about the things you and I have talked about all the time. About it's still about giving value. It's still about sharing your story. It's still about connecting with your audience. So, that's what's funny about it is that even though that like the more things have changed, the more they've stayed the same as well. So it's like this kind of like tension, if you will. And one of the things that I think that I have really kind of come back to is that you have to really, you know, have that deeper understanding. You have to kind of like really, connect on a more meaningful level. And that's something, again, we've also talked about in the past and stuff like that. So how are you like kind of, like how are you recommending or letting folks know that they can really, you know, connect with their audience and like what are some of the things that like, maybe is like a bit of a change from before that like, what are some of those things that like you're sharing now?
Yeah. I mean, I think something that I'm coming to grips with, and a lot of people that I see who are doing big things or have already been doing is that instead of trying to go wide, you go deep,
Hmm.
right? So radio was about going wide. It was like, let's see how many people we can reach that were untargeted, complete strangers, never knew you from the guy walking down the street until they heard your song on the radio, and then let's bombard them with so much of your content that it will force them to like you, right?
Hmm.
So people try to use that strategy on social media, but it doesn't
Right.
work because with social media you have so many other options, whereas radio it was like the top 10 songs were always in rotation. Like you had no choice. That's all you had, right? So when I say go deep, I mean it's like a different mindset, right? So instead of trying to appeal to everybody, um, what I'm really focused on and what I'm teaching people this year is focus on putting yourself in a category of one and becoming a meaningful specific to those people. And then as a chain reaction, humans naturally they like to follow and do things that everybody else is doing. So when you go deep and you can get enough real fans, then people will look onto that and say, wow, this guy is onto something, or they're doing something. And that's when other people will come, and then that's how you will make the fire bigger. So that's something that I really think people have to kind of shift their mindset to, is how do I go deep instead of wide? How do I put myself in a category of one? Meaning, like, instead of me trying to be like every other artist, what are my differentiating points? And then get really clear on who am I doing this for? Because a lot of times when I work with artists, they don't really know who their music is for, right? They don't
Hmm.
they don't make it with that person in mind. So then it becomes very general, and then it's like luck. It's like, well, maybe the people will take it, maybe they won't. Like I can guarantee you, when Adele sat down and got that song or wrote that song or however she got it, she in her mind knew exactly who she was talking to in that song. She
Hmm.
knew exactly who she was singing to. She knew how the lyrics were going to touch them. She just knew who that person was. And then what happened is it just blew up because, yeah, it's a great song, but it's a very specific song to a very specific time period. And so I think that's where we have to go in this coming year.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's that thing of where, you can be sometimes spending so much of your time fanning the fire and stuff like that, but really, like, if you just get that one spark really going, like, instead of like trying to just, douse them with gasoline and stuff like that, and then just, really focus on getting that ember really going and stuff like that, you can really light a fire on growing things from there. And I think that's the thing that, like, a lot of artists and even businesses may miss that opportunity. It could be, and that's actually one of the things that I've written as one of my top lessons from this past year, is that people talk about the 80-20 rule, and I would say, I think you and I have talked about that too, where it's more like 90-10. That it's probably 10% of your efforts that will get you 90% of your results. And I've seen that with so many of the successful businesses and entrepreneurs. It's unbelievable, like, kind of just the different people that really, when they catch on to what it is in their business that really is, like, their ideal customer, their ideal offer, that they
Mhm.
focus on that and work it and stuff like that. That's when they really start cranking out the success. And so I think that's the other thing that kind of we have to figure out, though, is like, how do we identify what is it like? So how do we, again, like, kind of for these folks that, like, are trying to identify that 10%, though, what are some of the ways that they can recognize that, though, besides simply that they make more sales? Because sometimes it can get kind of buried in all the noise and the data and stuff like that. So what are some of the ways that you suggest folks to kind of really hone down on who their ideal fan is?
Um, so I think what it comes down to first is understanding how to think about fan building. Because I think from a basic level, most artists that I talk to don't really understand what a fan is. They don't understand like how to create value for the fan or what that even looks like to the fan. And then they go very wide with their branding and with their message. So what I think people need to do is first figure out and say, okay, a fan, what does a fan mean to me at the stage where I'm at? Does this mean that I put out a video and I get 100 people to comment every single week? Does this mean that I sell 10 albums to different people every week? Does this mean that I'm doing 10? I mean, what does that actually mean? Because a fan to me could be different from a fan for somebody else. So first is quantifying what does that mean? So once you have that basic understanding, now you can look at the numbers and you can say, okay, based on what I perceive as a fan, either I need to do more of this or I need to do more of that. Now, in terms of actually attracting those people, I think the best strategy for anybody, business, artist, whatever, is to go after a small segment of the niche. So normally what happens is people will go after an entire niche. They'll say, okay, I'm going after everybody who likes rap music, or I'm going after everybody who likes country music, versus saying, okay, I'm going to go into rap music or country music. And then inside of that niche, I'm going to go after people who have just left home and they're now freshmen in college. And I'm going to put myself in their shoes and try to understand, what is that lifestyle like? Like the independence now from the family, now being on your own, having to survive, you know, how are you going to be with the ladies? Like how you're going to have to meet the expectations of your parents, like all these psycho kind of analytical things that you can touch on, that when a person sees that and they're going through their daily life, it's going to connect with them, because they're going to say, wow, like I'm actually in that position right now. I know what I like, this guy understands me, right? Because I read something today. It said 80% of music is like emotional. It's like, it's an emotional stimulus. Oh, yeah. It's an emotional driver. So people are already in their feelings when they're listening to music and they're looking for artists. So why not meet them where they're at to build that connection? So I think those are some starting points for people to really break out. And then the rest of the people will come as a result of you being very specific. Because look at any successful artist. It was always like a small niche of people that caught on. And then the world was like looking onto it and said, wow, this guy's doing big things. I'm going to follow him. And just
whether you're a musician, you know, like, you know, having, you know, that feeling that, you know, this artist gets me and wrote this song just for me, or, you know, you're an author and like, you know, where somebody reading it, you know, feels like they're writing those words just to me and stuff like that. That's the ultimate. I mean, that's something that, like, you know, when you discover that, you know, that song or that book or, you know, or that film, you know, like kind of that is where you really, you're basically a fan for life. That's the thing that, you know, we talk about different times, that, like, you know, it's great to have that one fan that you make that one sale and stuff like that, but another thing to have a fan for life. And that's where it's, you know, starting to build that connection and then kind of deepening it and stuff like that. So as you kind of grow in the relationship and everything, what are like the next things then? How are some ways that, like, you know, we as artists and as you know, indies and stuff like that can kind of take things to that next level? Because, you know, different times we don't have, like, you know, the resources of a publishing, you know, like we're not gonna be able to advertise on Time Magazine, whatever, stuff like that. In fact, we don't want to, you know, because of the budget and everything. So what is it that, like, we do to kind of like deepen that relationship then? What are the touches that we can make with our fans?
Yeah, I mean, so many artists will come to me and be like, man, like, how do I get an investor, or how do I get like money to like do all this like marketing and all this kind of stuff? And I'm thinking to myself, like, you don't need that. like what, like you can. So for one, if you get money from an investor and you don't know who your audience is and you don't really know how to speak to them, you're going to waste their money, because you're going to use their money to test out things. And that's not a good look for anybody in terms of like wanting longevity and wanting to go to the next level, right? And so my thing is, like, it's free to go on social media and to build a pulse, right? To kind of see what's going on and just to kind of see like who's, you know, like who your real fans are. But the problem is that most artists, they don't think in terms of like leverage, right? They're not thinking leverage. They're thinking, what can I get from people, versus how can I give so much value that I can have leverage and one day turn around and say, look, I've given you guys this much stuff. Here's what I want in return. It's really a simple equation. If you really think about it with anything, it's like, here's free value. Okay, here's what I want. And there will be an obligation if it's done correctly. That's just how human nature works. That's just how it works. And if you can get that concept, you will approach the game, the industry or your business with giving first, because it actually sets you up in a better position than if you're going to say, I'm going to go into the studio, I'm going to make my album, and then you're going to buy this. That's not how it works anymore. So that's what I would recommend for people to do.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that, like, it's funny that it always goes back to some real basic things and stuff like that, where one of the places that I use or basically go on a lot to kind of write and answer questions is on Quora. And basically, over the first, 3/4 of the year, very little interaction, just, a few views and stuff like that. But then all of a sudden, around like September, October, things just kind of really took off. And it's just that way that, like, you've got to, put in the time of being there and showing up and really, like, whether it's as an artist, different times of just, putting out the music, like on SoundCloud or, the different other places that you put your music and stuff like that. It's got to be that you have to put it out there, because here's what happened too. Like, one of my students recently said, like, one of the things that, like, made him kind of decide to work with me and stuff like that was after, we connected a little bit, he kind of did a search on social media and stuff like that and saw, like, what was it that I was writing, what kind of things I was kind of, posting about, stuff like that. And that gave me, street credibility. That made me, like, kind of somebody more legitimate in his eyes, And the other part was here's what was really interesting. What he found fascinating was the fact that, like, I didn't just write about technology, I didn't just write about business, but I actually wrote about things like creativity, about artistry and stuff like that, these other aspects. And so that made me more interesting also in his eyes as somebody who he wanted to work with, because I seem to be more of a rounded person. And I think that's the thing that, like, artists miss out on, is the ability to kind of basically provide more of a picture of yourself through social media, not simply a thing of, like, putting cat videos and stuff like that, but basically, building on the relationship, kind of, just deepening the connections that you started with and stuff. So I think beyond that, what happens also is taking things to that next level is just, like, kind of to keep the momentum going, stuff like that, and consistency. So what are some of the things that you talk about, like, kind of that, like, to kind of, build in that consistency? Because I have to admit, I'm probably one of the worst at that, where, like, I will do something for a while, drop it, because I get on to kind of other things and I get distracted and all that. So what are some of the things that you talk about, like, to kind of keep the momentum going?
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, I have those tendencies too, like, because I'm always trying to figure out, like, what's the highest value work I can do. And so I'm always shifting back and forth. But once I find that thing, I'm, like, zeroed in. But I think that, so a lot of what I do now, and this is why the world is so crazy and so exciting at the same time, because if you put the work in, you can figure out how to make anything work, right? So, like, what I do now is I will spend, like, an hour or two a day, and I will go watch interviews from people at, like, record labels or managers or artists or social media people. And what I'll do is I'll listen to what they're saying, and then I will go out and I will try to emulate that, or I will try to create that reality around my business, right? And so I think that what artists really have to focus on is vision. So I can't remember the lady's name. Actually, I think I have it right here. Her name is Jody Gerson. She's a publisher over at I think Sony. And basically, I was watching an interview on her, and somebody asked, like, what's the number one thing that you guys look for when you guys want to sign an artist? And she said it wasn't their talent, it wasn't their songs, it wasn't any of that. She was like, it was their vision. And I was like, oh, I thought that was interesting. And she was like,
yeah.
She was like, I look at their vision because right now, she was like, we don't start fires. We just pour gasoline on them. Basically, that's what she was saying. We pour gasoline on them and we help them heat up. So she was like sending in demos and all that kind of, she was like, we rarely, like, do that. She was like, we find people who already have something going on, and we basically go out there and we kind of help them go to the next level. But she said vision. She said, if I meet an artist that doesn't have vision, I can't work with them because they don't know where they're going. And that makes it difficult for us to put anything behind them. So I think one of the most important things that artists need to work on is having a vision, right? This is coming right out of the horse's mouth saying, this is what we look for. I go do this. She also said, instead of trying to get directly to her, she was like, I have like several dozen people around me who are like interns, assistants that all have their hands on music. She was like, she openly said, go find them, get them your music. They'll listen to it, make a relationship with them, and then they'll get it to me. She was like, one of the biggest things that she learned coming up was not to go directly to the head person, but go to the person under them. And so it's little things like this that artists need to pay attention to, because instead of trying to spend all this money on demos and albums and all, she's telling you exactly what you need to do to get in the door. But most people will just let that go over their head because they're stuck in this way of like, okay, this is the 90s. I got to get a demo. I got to get this. I got to do that. And, so I think those are some of the key things that I would look out for. She also said one other thing that was really important. She said, we don't really look at social media like followings and all that. She was like, that doesn't really do anything. She's like, that doesn't really matter to us.
Wow.
Yeah, I was surprised when she said that. She was like, that doesn't really matter to us. And I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. So again, I think a lot of labels are getting to the place where, I've seen this so many times now. Artists will have like millions of followers on Instagram, millions of followers on channels. They release something and they sell like 2,000 copies. All right, like it doesn't anything. But again, that's because they're going wide and they're not going deep. And they haven't adjusted to the modern way of marketing. They're still marketing like it's 1990 versus 2016. So these are some of the things that we have to course correct in order to get to the destination.
Yeah, that's interesting about the idea that where the numbers in a way don't matter, and where it's basically just the opposite. And I think that's the thing. Like, I have to admit that it makes sense to me that, like, if the artist has a vision, then that's somebody who has this kind of locked up potential. And then, like you said, it's then when you bring in somebody like Sony, that is gasoline to, like that spark is like strong and stuff like that. And you're just basically letting it kind of take off from there. And so that totally makes sense for that. But like, here's the thing though, like, so how does an artist kind of develop that kind of vision though? Like, what is it that like kind of they can do if like the different times like what, like you said, they're focused on kind of like the old ways of doing things, and so their vision is off then. So how do they kind of develop more clarity of what it is that really matters then? Like, in other words, like the things you talked about, like what does it mean for them to have a fan? What is it like? How do they kind of get more clarity on that vision then?
I think and this is even for myself too, because I'm trying to really, like, I never considered, before I just considered like, okay, I understand marketing. I'm going to make information products. I'm going to help artists like this and this, and just kind of stay in that lane. I never had a vision for like, why don't I start my own management company? Well, why don't I start my own label? Why don't I do all that, right? I just never had that vision because, again, my vision was like, this is the world I come from, so I can just do and this and then that's just what I'm going to be. So it wasn't until I started to change my belief system. And I know this gets into like personal development and people don't want to hear about this, but it's true. It's like your belief system dictates your actions. So if you don't believe that you have enough skill sets to market yourself, you will kill your career in trying to make demos and music and pass them out to record execs and stuff like that, because you believe that's the only way you can do it. So I think it comes with getting around other people and just seeing the world differently and seeing the industry differently. And that's how you can start to cultivate a vision for, what it is that you want to do and a belief system. Like, for instance, and if I blow up, they're probably gonna watch this interview. But I started studying Justin Bieber's manager,
Hmm.
and I started saying to myself, what can he do that I can't do right now? Like I started really like asking myself that, like what makes him like great? Like what gives him the ability to do what he does? Like, and I totally respect it. And I said he had the vision to get on YouTube to go find Justin. He had the vision to go find art. Like he just had vision. Like he just believed that it was possible. Anybody could have found Justin Bieber on YouTube. But what was it about him that made him go and start thinking like that? So I started thinking like that too. I'm like, I've got thousands of artists on my email list. I talk to artists all the time. What's stopping me from doing the same thing? You know what I mean? It's just
Yeah, that's interesting because I had read something recently about his manager and stuff, and that's the thing. He's kind of like this unknown in some ways, like people, and that's usually the case with managers. Like they're usually the kind of people behind the works. And I forget who I exactly read the article by and stuff like that, but basically it talked about how he had basically, in fact, I think it was might have been Lewis Howes that was talking about it, but his manager actually connected with some other managers and stuff like that. And so it's that thing that, we've talked about different times that, even why we do this mastermind and stuff is that it's about surrounding yourself with the people who they're succeeding in a way that's not, like kind of what's traditional wisdom, stuff like that. And I think that's what's interesting is that like you have to still, even though that like it's about finding new ways, but you still have to find the people that are doing things in that new way. And that's what helps. And surrounding yourself with those people and stuff like that, that's, like one of the things I've been studying recently is about mirror neurons. It's the idea that like we have this ability that like when we, it goes back to the thing about like, modeling that, you've talked about stuff like that. But when you surround yourself with these people who are doing it, what you want to do and stuff like that, we learn like kind of, it's a joke. It sounds like a joke, but we literally learn by osmosis because we mirror the things. Some are conscious, but other things are unconscious just because we're around them and stuff. Another interview that you might be interested that I listened to recently was Jamie Foxx on Tim Ferriss's, and if you have a chance, it's a long ass interview, about almost 2 hours, but it's really phenomenal and it really applies because what Jamie Foxx is actually talking about wasn't so much about his background in film and comedy and the things, like he did talk about those things. But here's the thing that like really I didn't know. He has a home studio, and in that home studio, he literally has launched like all these different artists and stuff like that. I mean, he's had people that like, even recently, Ed Sheeran is actually somebody who like was literally living on the floor of his home studio, stuff like that, because he just got to LA, was trying to, make his break and stuff like that. And now look at, how he's blown up and everything. But the thing is, though, it was just that idea, though, same thing of just being surrounded by the people who are doing what you want to be doing. Because here's the thing, it wasn't just Ed Sheeran in his studio. It was other times, people like Puff Daddy and all these other kind of artists that were coming by different times, and they're, sharing what they're doing and they're making cuts and stuff like that. That's the thing that like, it's just being around these people, that kind of, that's the thing. So if I had any one success habit that like I'm really recommending for anybody in whether it's in writing or in music, for 2016, stuff like that, is find the people that you really want yourself with them. And like not like where you're trying to tag along and try to, like again, other thing we talk about is giving value. Like how can you help them? And then next thing you know, they will, ask you, hey, why don't you jump in on this track, or why don't you, contribute to the. In fact, I have a friend who's he and I connected a while back and stuff like that, and I recently submitted and got an article on Good Men Project because he and I just kind of gone back and forth. I've helped him with promoting his book and with the edits and stuff like that. And then he said, hey, I just got selected as an editor for a Good Men Project. Would you be interested in submitting an article? And Sure, absolutely. So I'm helping him again by submitting something that he can kind of move forward and feel good about, like kind of um, getting on there and stuff like that. But meanwhile, he's definitely helping me to kind of get exposure that I never would have had otherwise. So that's the other part that's kind of about this too, where you are literally that that all ships rising with the tide and stuff like that. So that's the other part that kind of happens. I think the other thing that I talked about. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was saying definitely, and I wanted to share something on that real quick that I think a lot of people, because see, a lot of people approach it differently. And especially when I'm coaching artists and consulting them, I kind of give them this mindset shift and they're like, man, I would have never thought like this. But so going back to the Jamie Foxx thing. So I sold a reality show to MTV a couple years ago. We had an air date, contract sealed, everything was going on. Something happened and it didn't end up airing. But through that, I was signed to a really big agency and I was able to make a lot of connections. And so my agent, she called Jamie Foxx's company one day because she had a relationship over there and was like, hey, can you meet this kid? Like, he's got some shows, blah, 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 whatever. They're like, yeah, but whatever. So they come in, or so they invite me in. I go up to Jamie Foxx's company. I literally parked in like the 5-minute, parking. So I'm like, they're only going to have me in here for 5 minutes and they're going to tell me to leave. I go up in there.
Right.
I start pitching on my ideas, talking to them, just networking with them. They end up bringing in Jamie's partner and basically I end up forming a relationship with them where I could basically bring in shows, like pitch TV shows with them. And if they like it, then they would take it to the network and stuff. But my point is that most people see, I went in there on some like, what can I do for you guys? Not on some like, I just sold a TV show. I got more ideas, da, 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 da. No, I'm asking them, so what do you guys need? How can I help you guys get to the next level? Like, what is it that, I can do for you? And one of the ways that I've always made connections with big people in the entertainment industry, I've always come from this mindset of like, what could I do for them? And I humble myself down to almost like an intern, right? Because see, what I found is that when you come into a situation and you meet somebody and you're like, look, I just want to learn from you. I just want to pick up some knowledge. I'm not really trying to pitch you nothing. I'm not trying to get nothing from you. I just want to see how you move. Then what happens is as that relationship develops, then when you have your value, it's inevitable that one day they'll be like, hey man, so what do you think about this? Or like, do you have anything that goes with this? Or do you have, like, this happened to me so many times. So basically what I'm telling artists is like, look, like you're saying, just find a way to get around successful people and then come at it with a good heart, and then find a unique value proposition that they don't have that you could bring to the table. And then from there, that's how a lot of success stories happen with people, is because they brought something in that, and it could be something small, like the artist is too big to do this, so you do this for them. And then from there, one day they're like, yo, let me put you on a track, or let me put you on a movie, or let me put you in whatever. Like, I think that's how you have to approach this. So I just wanted to kind of throw that in. And also I wanted to say that you're right about the Jamie Foxx thing, because my brother used to go over Jamie Foxx's house all the time. And he would always tell me like all these different people were there. And it's kind of like a creative like thing. Like he only let like a small group of people over there. But if you were in that mix, anything was possible.
Yeah, and that's the thing. What I love about that interview too is he didn't just talk about having all these people and stuff like that. He talked about when he was like a nobody and what he did to kind of bring all these people in. So like I have no problem promoting Tim Ferriss's podcast, but definitely recommend that interview. In fact, it's one of the ones that is up for best podcast for 2015 and stuff like that. So shout out to Tim, and definitely, I recommend it and stuff like that. The other part that I think what's interesting about what you said though is that basically, like even though like it's this thing of where you are just helping somebody else stuff like that. It's I think what's often as indies we feel like, because we're not like at certain levels stuff like that. We sometimes think like, oh, what can I offer somebody like a Jamie Foxx stuff like that. And like you said, it's amazing. It could be like something as goofy as simple as a cup of coffee and stuff like that. And that's a very basic level that like as like you just happen to be like somewhere and but I think that's the thing though, like it's sometimes being creative. It's not about like kind of about having money. It's not about, in fact, again, talking about his interview a little bit, what he talked about was how, I think I think it might have been Puff Daddy, that basically, he just basically said, like, hey, like, I bet I can have, like, I know you spend all these millions and stuff like that having this, party, stuff like that. I'm going to show you how you can have this kind of, kicking party for $400 and stuff like that. And that's what he did. This is when he was, again, starting out and trying. Nobody didn't know, nobody knew him and stuff like that. And he basically, had been going to these comedy clubs, been keeping people on his speed dial and stuff like that. And basically, once he, planned this party and stuff like that, he texted all these, and he said his ratio was something like 2 women to every, 1 guy, something like that. Texted them, let them know, hey, I'm having this party, and you're showing, and if and you're especially invited because you're a fan of Puff Daddy, stuff like that. So he had already planned this out, stuff like that. That like, and sure enough, like he kind of pointed to like that table full of fried chicken or something like that, $400, and that was his budget, and so meanwhile all these people that basically were around, and he said, here's the thing, you spend all those millions stuff like that, and those are people that showed up because you flash the cash, but the people here at this party are the people that really love what you do, really get what you're doing, stuff like that, because it's not about like kind of spending money and stuff like that, and so again, that's what's funny is it goes back to things we've talked about, is about like kind of, and he found a way to give value, at the level that he was able to, stuff like that. And he did something that like really, impressed the hell out of him, Puff Daddy. And then next thing you know, they were working together on some other projects and everything. And so that's the thing. It's like you never know what it is. But here's the other question then too, is like, so what are some ways, like how can people get creative though? Like what are some things that you kind of tell people to do to kind of like, get those creative juices going?
Definitely, man. I've done this so many times with huge people, like people that you would never, like Travis Barker, like I've had Travis Barker meet me at Starbucks before. I didn't even know him from anybody. I met him at the club one day, and he met me at Starbucks and spent like 2.5 hours talking to me and my brother like a few years back. It was based on the same principles. It was based on the principle of me not trying to get at him, but me talking to somebody really close to him who introducing me to him. And then basically kind of went from there. But so what I think people have to do is separate their talent from like human emotion. So what I mean by this is that if you're going to meet somebody or network with people, don't think like the only thing you have to offer is like your talent. See, you have to start with their perspective and say, okay, what's important to them? Like what in their life could I enhance? Even like you said, even if I've read stories about people in the music industry who have, gone out and bought, shoes or sodas or just carried crates or doing whatever they had to do to show that person that they were loyal, right? So I think that once you put your talent aside and say, okay, how can I really affect this person? How can I help this person? I think that's where I always start. So the lady who wrote, she wrote Freaky Friday, she wrote Miss Doubtfire, she wrote Limitless, all these like super huge blockbuster movies. My cousin, their son, like my cousin's daughter and her son, they went to the same school. So here's an example. I was like, man, I really want to get her my script. Like, I'm gonna go to this birthday party. So I went to the birthday party, not with I had the script on me, but it wasn't like, I didn't walk in with it or, hey, I'm a writer, I'm trying to do this, I'm trying to do that. It was more like, let me go in, let me fill it out, let me see where I can add value in the situation. So what I did was while all the people from Hollywood were in there with their kids and just, they didn't really want to be, they were trying to put on this persona or whatever. I saw the kids, they were young, and there was like a dance floor. All the girls were on one side, all the guys were on another side. So what I do is I go over there and I get all the kids dancing. And I get them having fun and just really enjoying the party. And all the execs and all the people there, they're like coming up to me like, hey man, thank you for, da 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 da. And then we start talking. So literally as I'm walking out the door, her husband's like, they're like, thank you so much for coming, yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. You actually made the party. And I'm like, thank you so much. And see, so this is that reciprocity thing. So then I turn around and I say, hey, I'm in this world, I do writing, yada, yada, yada. Could I meet with you over coffee? I always use the coffee line. Could I meet with you over coffee? The guy's like, yeah. I met with him over coffee, developed a relationship with him to the point where, they started inviting me over and just made connections. So that's how you have to think about this stuff, is like, don't try to pitch something. Try to add something to people's lives and make it at a very human level. And you will see that's how you can make connections with big people that you never thought you could ever, make a relationship with. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's interesting is, that for me, it was a big shift of mindset, just like having that idea of like value before reward. Because up to then, I would feel icky. Like when I would like, go to like a networking, thing and stuff like that, and hand out my business cards, I felt icky because it was just, it just feels wrong, So that's what's funny about like, but when I went in with the attitude of what is it that I can do to kind of, like you said, add value, the minute that I had that one shift in mindset, it just, felt so much better. And also, just next thing you know, that was on another level where like, you just literally, you're connecting with people that like in a way that like is not only authentic, but it's like where they, they automatically connect with that. Like it's just kind of like, it's more automatic then. In other words, it's not forced like the way it is when you kind of like, oh, hey, would you like to, check out my script and all that? It just feels like just much more, like where things naturally go from there. It just, I'm sure like that's how it was. After you did that and stuff like that, it felt so much easier to just simply, like kind of say, hey, this is what I'm working on and stuff. You might be interested. And no, oh, you got to check it out. Would you do this for me? And, all this kind of stuff. It wasn't like from a place of begging. It was from a place, again, of more generosity. And that was what's interesting. It was that you had generosity of spirit of like kind of, being at the party and entertaining, stuff like that. And then from there, it was just even more value by basically, offering, for them to take the time to learn more about you and stuff. So that's, I think, one of the big things. So I think we're going to kind of, at this point, share some of the things like at a like as a rewind or recap and stuff like that. So I'll let you go first. Brandon, what are your top 3 things going into 2016 that you want to kind of share and kind of go forward with?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the top things that I'm looking to really, cause see, I'm looking at quantum leaps. Like I don't want to move slow. I want to go from here to here. But with that being said, I think one of the most important things, like I heard Gary Vaynerchuk say this today, he said, patience is grossly undervalued. And I think that so many people come into this artistic realm and they want to manifest a result like tomorrow, like next month, like right. in 1 year from now. And I think that if you can have patience, like a lot of times I've seen this, a lot of times just waiting will get you further than most people because things start to shift around that align you with that thing that you're going for. So one of my big things that I'm really trying to learn more of and just really do is have patience. Like that's kind of the first thing. After patience, what I want to do is, again, you build a network. I've seen a lot of people who are less talented in different industries because they built a network of people. They were able to get further than them trying to build their own network from scratch, right? So I had this like epiphany the other day. I was like, most people who are millionaires, billionaires, are successful, 9 times out of 10, it's because they met somebody that introduced them to their network that was larger than theirs, and then their value was able to extract people out of that network or money out of that system and was able to make them rich or to bring them value. So I think it's a strategic approach to business and to the game, and saying, you know what, here's the top 5 networks. How do I get involved? And then how do I have enough patience to be at the bottom of the totem pole while I'm still honing my craft and doing what I got to do? And then just having that vision to know that one day I'm going to be in position where they're going to be like, hey, we need somebody who can do this. And I'm going to be right there, have been in the wings waiting, and then it's going to blow up. So that's really it, man. For me, is just those 2 things: patience, networking, and then just, I guess the last thing would be the heart position, because I think that like just like you were saying, like, it's different if I come to you and I say, John, check out my music. John, please listen to my music. John, listen to my demo. Versus if I come to you and I'm like, hey, John, so what can I do for you? How can I enhance your life? See, that just feels different. It's like, wow, okay, well, I never really thought about that, because most people don't approach me like that, right? So I think that if an artist or a business owner or whoever it is can have a different heart position and understand that your success is a byproduct of the value that you bring into a situation. And so it doesn't have to be directly correlating with that situation, but knowing that you're serving the person who is in a position or can help you out. Like Harrison Ford, a lot of people don't know Harrison Ford used to be George Lucas's carpenter.
Yeah.
Right? Like, he happened to be there the day when they were talking about Star Wars, and they looked at him and was like, hey, man, why don't you do this? Next thing you know, he's that guy, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
So that's how I, ever since I heard that story and I started seeing other stories similar to that, I'm like, that's how I want to approach the game.
Yeah, and for me, with that example is an example of like kind of different times just being curious. Like, people talk about follow your passion, and to me, like, that's such bad advice, because different times, like people don't even know what they're passionate about. Like, they think they know, they think like, oh, I want to be, this kind of rock star. This is the time, but really, like, if you're curious, if you follow and listen to stuff like that, different times you may just very well find that the very thing you're passionate about is just something you never expected. Oh, sorry, Ben. I'd be glad to let you join on and stuff like that. Just give me a second to kind of wrap this up, and then we'll have you on for a few seconds, okay? The other thing is kind of allowing you to kind of take that passion to that next level, and to do that is it's about trusting the process. Like the example that you gave about like different times, like kind of doing having the patience, stuff like that. Trusting the process is, to me, what that means is that, like, one of the things that, like, when I was first learning to shoot in the pistol team, stuff like that, is the staff sergeant would tell us that, like, like what people tend to do is they'll aim at something and then they'll like kind of jerk the trigger rather than simply allowing the shot to happen. Like, in other words, what he talked about was different times just breathing, and then just, if you almost like let it happen, where you just basically you're just squeezing the trigger and stuff like that, then the shot will go off unexpectedly. You almost kind of be surprised by it. But the thing is, though, because you're letting it happen and stuff like that, and rather than like what people do is like kind of jerk the trigger and stuff like that, that then when you jerk the trigger, you tend to your shot will just go wherever and stuff like that. Versus just basically going through the process. It's the same thing that the Zen archers talk about and stuff like that, about breath control. And that's what's funny. The thing that we also find that, like, artists different times is that when they're tense and they're like kind of coming from this place of like singing from that versus like really getting into it and allowing the flow to happen, stuff like that, it's very different. And so to me, that connection is about trusting the process, whether it's social media, whether it's, just for me, it's writing lately, stuff like that. I've been really focusing on, trusting the process of writing and getting out more and more of, honing down to what it is that my authentic voice and stuff in my words. and that has been like kind of like for me. I've seen like really people have kind of connected with it. I've gotten more engagement. It just kind of like 10 times the results. And probably the most important thing for me, like kind of taking into 2016, is just what we're doing, masterminding, connecting with people that like get what you're doing, sharing, what they're learning and stuff like that, and just really vibing off of each other. It just, to me, it's been phenomenal. And that's definitely one of the key things I'm taking into the new year. Ben, if you're still up for it, love to invite you into the open seat and stuff. Okay, awesome. Hey Ben, welcome. I understand you know Brandon, and so love to kind of hear what your thoughts are and what you'd like to, if you had a question.
Hi, yeah. So, hi, John. Hi, Brandon. It's been fantastic to hear you talk away there.
Awesome. Welcome.
It's been fantastic. What I got from you, John, is that your words and your connection. It's in your words and it's in your new story as well. That you give out something that's something people don't have, and you have that bond. But you, Brandon, what I've gotten out of this, just listening to this, is about the deep connection and really, really connecting with people rather than going in, like, oh, I have this product and this is what I want. Not like that, but like, hey man, you saying, what can I do for you? It's I'm learning a lot. I've learned so much in this year. I'm a bit of a nutcase in the sense that I've hadn't had any sleep at all, but it's been so worth it. The fact that I've just gotten this opportunity, it's just sensational, really. I totally get what you've been talking about in success, to put yourself around successful people as well. I've gotten that at one stage in this this live streaming. It's totally true. It totally works. I talking about 2015. I started working in the Park Hotel, and that's been like they're the one of the top hotels in Ireland, and I've just learned so much in that alone by just even what they've. What I remember going to one conference and they were just saying that you have to learn. You have to look around. It's like what you were saying, Brandon, earlier, is that you look around at different ideas on social media from different people, and then you kind of take something from that and you kind of work around that, and then you kind of work with your customers with that way. The same applies with at this conference that I've been at recently. I just watched, and it's basically where the owner of the business says, basically. Unfortunately, this business, you have to look at your neighbors, and you have to sometimes copy your neighbors if they're at the top of the ladder, or if they're successful, because that's how you learn and that's how you progress. And I totally agree, because it's like, it's like, it's crazy. Yeah.
And so let me give Ben the proper introduction, just in case you guys don't know who he is. So I've been working with Ben for how long? Like, I don't even know.
I don't know. It feels like a year anyway. I'd say it's nearly a year.
About a year or so now. Ben was actually on the X Factor.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, you guys could definitely go check out his video.
Nice.
But he's come a long ways. Just from being on the X Factor and people knowing who he is and stuff like that, to I think really shifting his mindset now to kind of see, like, what marketing is really about. And he's gotten some great results lately on his videos and getting exposure, and he's doing a lot of things with like the media and the press and things like that. And I think he's gonna go far, just because he has that that willingness to go for it and to just jump out there and try it. And what I love about working with him is that I get a chance to see, like, firsthand, like, how artists like actually think about things, right? And then what I do is I try to work to eliminate the misunderstanding of different marketing and different things like that. And I can tell you right now, just from the first time I started working with him, he was very set in his ways on like how things should be and how it works and stuff like that. And then as we started working more, he started the things that I was telling him. And now, like, he has a video that he just put up last week. He got like 50,000 views in like a couple days.
Yeah, but I mean that could even have gotten 1 million, that video, if I listened fully to what Brandon said, what you said, Brandon. Yeah, I mean, because that really is the truth. I mean, you even said it. You know, you even liked the video, but there was, you know, the concept was wrong, which it was, and I even talked to some professionals about that as well, about, you know, the concept idea. They said the same. Like, it's crazy. I swear to God, like this year, if it wasn't for you, Brandon, I wouldn't be. I wouldn't be talking to you anyway. With you know, in this revolutionary kind of chat zone thing going on, it's quite hilarious. It's like all these words are just that I've learned from you, Brandon, alone, and they're also truthful, and it's honest, it's sincere, it's you know, the biggest word I've is revolutionary as well. That's one word I've learned from you, Brandon. And it's amazing. I can't believe that I got a video. I got a music video done. I made that deep connection I did last Christmas. It was just to connect with a young audience, so that they would, you know, think about their last lover, so that they have that bond. And that was just an idea I had. I didn't listen to Brandon's idea. If I listened to Brandon's full idea, that would be 1 million hits now, and I can say that. I would believe that, yeah. So yeah, it's fantastic, and thanks for having me on this video. And if there's any questions you have, or anything at all.
Absolutely, yeah. We definitely look forward to kind of connecting, you know, learning more about you and stuff. And that's the other thing about all this too is, I think, you know, different times people think about, like, how can, you know, like, kind of, I do everything in this, you know, and goes back to the things that Brandon was saying about, like, we try to do everything like one, you know, engagement and stuff like that. You know, like, to me, this is just the first time, you know, we've connected, you know, like you and Brandon have connected, you know, over time and stuff like that. So, I mean, I'm definitely looking forward to having you on, you know, future episodes, stuff like that. In fact, we'll definitely talk more about, like, kind of, you know, I interview actually, you know, indie creatives all the time.
Yeah, I
think
indie,
love to have you talk
is
to
a
you
great idea. I was doing a bit of research, and, you know, a lot of charts. Yeah, it's a lot of modern kind of beats and indie kind of music. It's big time. Oh yeah, I mean, that's actually one of the ideas now I want to do for my next kind of video going out there, and that bond I want to have. Yeah, there's a lot of kind of, I want to focus on the indie kind of crooner kind of music for sure. It's really great.
Awesome.
It's really great. Thank you, Brandon, for inviting me.
Definitely.
Very, very well appreciated, man. Yeah.
Awesome. I'm gonna go ahead and pause.